How do you defeat an empire that stretches from the Pacific Ocean to Eastern Europe? In the 13th century, the answer seemed simple: you don't. The Mongol Empire, forged by Genghis Khan and expanded by his successors, became the largest contiguous land empire in human history. Its horse-mounted armies moved faster than any force before them. Cities fell in weeks. Kingdoms collapsed in months. From China to Persia to the plains of Hungary, the Mongol war machine appeared unstoppable. But here's the paradox: the very speed and scale of their victories planted the seeds of their downfall. Every conquest added new lands to govern, new peoples to manage, new cultures to navigate. What had begun as a unified steppe confederation became a sprawling, multicultural superempire. Communication lines stretched thin. Loyalties shifted. Succession disputes erupted. This is the story of how the Mongol Empire did not collapse because it was weak, but because it became too powerful, too vast, and too complex to hold together. In winning so much, the Mongols created an empire that even they could not control. At its height, the Mongol Empire covered nearly 9 million square miles. Messages had to travel from the Mongolian steppe to Persia, from Beijing to the Volga River. Even with the Mongols' sophisticated relay system, the Yam, a network of horse stations allowing messengers to travel rapidly, governing such vast distances was an immense challenge. Orders from the Great Khan could take weeks or months to arrive. Local commanders often had to make independent decisions. Supply lines grew fragile, especially when campaigns pushed into unfamiliar terrain like the forests of Eastern Europe or the rivers of southern China. Maintaining roads, protecting trade routes, and coordinating armies across continents required administrative skills beyond what a nomadic tribal system had traditionally needed. The Mongols were brilliant conquerors, but empire building demanded something different: bureaucracy, taxation systems, and long-term governance. The larger the empire became, the more difficult it was to maintain cohesion. The Mongols ruled over Persians, Chinese, Russians, Koreans, Arabs, and countless other groups. Each had their own religions, languages, and traditions. Initially, the Mongols were religiously tolerant and pragmatic. They allowed local officials to remain in place and adopted administrative techniques from conquered peoples. But over time, assimilation began to change the conquerors themselves. In Persia, Mongol rulers of the Ilkhanate converted to Islam. In China, Kublai Khan embraced Chinese court rituals and governance systems. These adaptations helped them rule effectively, but they also distanced regional leaders from the Mongol heartland. Instead of one unified identity, the empire slowly developed distinct regional identities. The Mongol elite in China had different priorities than those in Central Asia. Shared loyalty to a single Great Khan began to weaken. Cultural blending strengthened local governance, but weakened imperial unity. The Mongols never developed a stable, universally accepted system for succession. Leadership was often decided through a kurultai, a council of nobles, but rival factions frequently clashed. After the death of Genghis Khan in 1227, power passed relatively smoothly to his son Ogedai. But later transitions became more contentious. Following Ogedai's death, regencies and rival claims created tension. After Monk Khan died in 1259, a civil war erupted between Kublai Khan and his brother Erik Bok. These conflicts weren't just political disagreements, they divided the empire militarily and geographically. Energy that once fueled expansion now turned inward. By the time of Kublai Khan's death in 1294, unity had largely fractured. The empire was no longer a single political entity, but a collection of semi-independent states. As central authority weakened, the empire split into 4 major khanates. The Golden Horde ruled over the western territories, including parts of modern-day Russia and Eastern Europe. Its capital lay along the Volga River. The Golden Horde maintained dominance over Russian principalities for decades, collecting tribute and influencing regional politics. Over time, its rulers converted to Islam, further separating them culturally from other Mongol branches. Conflicts with neighboring powers and internal instability gradually weakened the Golden Horde. By the late 15th century, it had fragmented into smaller khanates, losing control over Moscow and surrounding territories. In Persia and the Middle East, the Ilkhanate governed lands rich in culture and history. Mongol rulers adopted Persian administrative practices and, eventually, Islam. While this helped stabilize rule locally, it deepened divisions with other Mongol regions. Diplomatic tensions arose between the Ilkhanate and the Golden Horde, sometimes leading to open conflict. After a series of weak rulers and financial difficulties, the Ilkhanate disintegrated in the mid-14th century, splitting into competing local dynasties. Located in Central Asia, the Chagatai Khanate remained closer to traditional Mongol customs. It resisted cultural assimilation more than other branches. But it faced constant internal struggles between conservative nomadic factions and more settled, urban influences. These divisions led to repeated civil wars. Eventually, the Chagatai Khanate fractured into eastern and western halves, each vulnerable to rising regional powers. In China, Kublai Khan established the Yuan dynasty. Unlike the other khanates, it ruled one of the most populous and sophisticated societies in the world. Kublai adopted Chinese-style governance, built a new capital at Khanbaliq, modern-day Beijing, and integrated Confucian officials into administration. But ruling China required immense resources. Failed military campaigns against Japan and Southeast Asia drained finances. Natural disasters, inflation, and resentment among the Han Chinese population weakened the dynasty. In 1368, the Yuan dynasty was overthrown by the Ming dynasty, marking the end of Mongol rule in China. By this point, the once unified Mongol Empire existed only in memory. The Mongols demonstrated that military brilliance can create empires with astonishing speed. But expansion is only the beginning. Governing vast territories requires stable systems, reliable institutions, and long-term planning. The Mongols excelled at conquest, but the administrative demands of empire eventually outpaced their traditional structures. Interestingly, the Mongols' willingness to adapt and embrace local customs helped them rule diverse populations effectively. But it also diluted centralized authority. Balancing cultural integration with political unity is one of the greatest challenges any empire faces. Too much rigidity breeds rebellion. Too much assimilation weakens cohesion. The Mongol Empire shows how cultural flexibility can both strengthen and fragment a state. Perhaps the greatest structural weakness of the Mongol Empire was its lack of a clear, consistent succession system. Leadership disputes repeatedly destabilized the empire. Strong institutions, clear laws, administrative continuity, and defined processes for leadership transition are critical for long-term stability. Without them, even the most powerful empires can fracture when strong personalities disappear. The Mongol Empire rose from the windswept steppes of Mongolia to dominate continents. Its armies redefined warfare. Its trade networks connected East and West in ways the world had never seen before. But in conquering so much, the Mongols created a challenge greater than any enemy army. Their empire became too vast for rapid communication. Too diverse for a single identity. Too dependent on powerful leaders without a stable system to replace them. Victories multiplied territory, but also complexity. Expansion brought wealth, but also division. Conquest built an empire, but governing it required something different. In the end, the Mongol Empire did not fall in a single dramatic collapse. It fragmented. It transformed. It adapted into new political entities. Its story reminds us that power alone is not enough to sustain an empire. Strength must be matched with structure. Expansion must be balanced with stability. And sometimes, the greatest threat to a rising power is not defeat, but success itself.